Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie. Today it's near the end of August and a very hot day. It's the middle of the day because normally I try to do my videos at the end of the day when it's cooler. I do work full-time, but today it's Saturday and I have so many projects that we're just going to have to brave the heat of the day and get things done. Now today I wanted to show you a video. It's a little bit unconventional, although I have done it in the past, and it's how I prune my figs near the towards the end of August. Now I realize that that is not the best time to prune figs, but it is the time that I have found that suits me the best. And we'll go through and explain why I prune them this time of year and why I prune them the way I do, so that I can actually get figs that ripen. Now behind me we have my Chicago Hardy fig and my Black Mission fig, and those are the figs we're going to prune today, because last week when I had a little bit of time I pruned the rest of my figs so I could show you exactly how fast it works. So let's show you the Chicago Hardy fig. We'll talk a little bit about how I'm going to prune it, then we'll go on and show you the figs that I've already pruned, then we'll come back and we'll actually prune my Chicago Hardy. Now one thing that you noticed, I say it's really hot. I am wearing long sleeves, and I'm wearing long sleeves because fig trees, maybe with most people, but especially with me, if I come in contact with the leaves or with the sap, it makes me itch like crazy for about 2 days. And I don't want to go through that, so I found that wearing long sleeves, even though it's uncomfortably hot, will actually help me avoid the torture of itching. So anyway, let's look at my Chicago Hardy fig, talk about it a little bit, and then let's go look at the ones that I've already pruned. Now, I live in Utah, zone 6/7, and this fig has been in ground 6, maybe even closing in on 7 years. And right now it is getting close to 10 feet tall. Almost every single winter, except for last winter, I completely cover and heavily protect my fig trees. This one's on the south side, and last year I decided to try and not protect it and see what happens. And we had no dieback whatsoever. Now the reason I protect figs over the winter is because if they hit 20 degrees, especially while they're leafed out, you will lose all the branches, all the way down to the thicker branches. And if you don't have any thicker branches, let's say you let them die back year after year after year, they will always die back to the ground, and then every year they'll have to spend the time to grow and then start producing figs. In Utah, any figs, or at least in my area, any figs that form after the beginning of July do not have time to ripen. So these little babies right here that you're seeing just start, maybe if you lived in a warmer climate with a longer season, those might have time to ripen. But the rest of these are not going to have time to ripen. Ones that are this size right here probably won't have time to ripen. But if you get down into the ones that are this size, they're going to ripen at the end of the season. Now you can see how incredibly thick this is all the way to the ground. We have a lot of new growth, and we have some very large old branches. They're the original branches. And I know that eventually those older branches are going to become less and less productive, and they do need to be replaced. So we're going to figure out which ones we're going to remove, and the ones that need to be replaced will need to be removed next spring. I'm not going to cut out that big a branch this time of year. But let's go show you my other figs and show you which ones I have removed. Now this is my brown turkey fig. This is a tree that I minimally protected last year. I didn't protect it the full way I protected the Chicago Hardy. And last week before I pruned this tree, it was completely thick and full of branches, just like the Chicago Hardy was. But now that I've pruned it, you can see through the branches. We've thinned it out quite a bit. I didn't thin it out as much as some of the other ones that I'm going to show you because I really do plan on not protecting this one over the winter and seeing how it does. Now, let me show you one of the main benefits of pruning these figs early and in August. Right here, you can see we're actually starting to get a ripe fig. Now I have done experiments in the past where I've pruned some and not pruned others, and the figs that are not pruned do not start to ripen until really late in the season. But if we wait really late in the season and then we end up getting a fall frost in September like we normally do, then all of my figs will not have a chance to ripen. Well, right now we're going to get quite a few have a chance to ripen because it is just August. We have another one right here. Let's see if you can see it. It's not quite ready to harvest. Another one here that's closer but not quite ready. But within a few days, I'm going to have some brown turkey figs ready to harvest. Let's go show you the other ones. Now this right here is a Ronde Bordeaux fig. I have heard they're not as hardy as the Chicago Hardy and the brown turkey, so I pruned this more heavily because I plan on completely covering this at the end of the year. Now by pruning in August, I not only help the figs start to ripen, which these figs were not even close to being ripe when I started pruning them last week. It not only helps the figs ripen early, but when I prune it, it's getting ready for the fall so it doesn't throw out any new growth. You know, the tips that are not pruned will continue to grow a lot more slowly because it's near the end of the year, but we're not getting new growth that's going to get nipped by the fall frosts and the freezes that we get. But we are going to have ripe Ronde Bordeaux figs here shortly. Now this is another one. This is a Negrone, which is a lot like the Violette de Bordeaux. Some people say it actually is the Violette de Bordeaux, just under a different name. But this one did have issues this last year. It did not leaf out until mid-June. I thought it wasn't going to leaf out at all. I thought I'd lost it. But it finally did leaf out. It leafed out extremely heavily and was completely choked with growth and had very few figs. But when I pruned it, I did find a few. I don't know if these babies are going to actually have time to ripen this year, but I did harvest one. It was beautiful, it was delicious, and I think I harvested it in my last food forest tour, so I will link that above so you could go watch that. These are gorgeous, delicious, really, with a really strong berry flavor fruit, so they're really good. Another one that I pruned heavily so that I could cover it is this Marseilles Black VS. We do have figs on it. None of them have started to ripen yet, but I do fully expect these to ripen in a few weeks. This one is a newer one. This one was planted last spring and we got one fruit off it last spring and it turned out to be my very favorite. This is a Latarula or Italian honey fig, and look at the size of these figs. They will definitely have time to ripen. There's not a lot of them because it is only its second year, but as this gets more and more size, we're going to get more and more figs, and I'm really excited about these. And this one had the least amount of figs. This was also planted last year. This is an Olympian fig that supposedly has a peach flavor to it. We'll see if these get time to ripen this year. I expect they might. We also have another one over here. But this one, as I said, is a newer fig, so it's its second year, so it didn't produce that much, but it looks really healthy. I did prune it really heavily. It will be completely covered over the winter. And I'll link a video above that shows you how I cover my figs, but it should do really well. So now that we've seen what they look like and how open they look after I'm done pruning them, let's go show you how I actually do the pruning. So I'm sorry about the air conditioning sounds. It is really hot, as you could probably tell by the sweat on my forehead. But we've just got to do the video in the conditions that we have. So I am sorry about that noise. But I do want to recap why I prune figs this time of year and what it helps. Number one, it helps the figs ripen. It gives it more airflow. It takes away the energy from a lot of growth. It takes away the energy from producing a lot of new figs, and it helps the old figs ripen. Then it also opens up the fig and makes it easier to protect it over the winter. Now I'm not going to be protecting this fig over the winter, so I'm not going to prune it as heavily as I have the other figs, but we definitely need to get it opened up, and I would love to see some of these figs start to ripen. So let's get in there and show you how I start. Now the very first thing that I'm going to do is the way I normally prune all my trees, is I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to look at all the growth that's down here at the bottom, and I'm going to see what can be productive and useful later and what is not productive and useful, what's just crowding out the plant. So the first thing that I notice is this branch right here. It's coming out of the bottom, and it's just poking out the side. I don't want a lot of growth poking out this way into my path, so this is one of the ones that I'm going to remove. I'm also going to remove a lot of the small unproductive growth that is never going to have a chance to grow big and replace some of the older growth. But what we do have right here, I'll shake it so you can see it, is a very healthy larger branch, which I think next year might serve to replace this older, bigger branch. So that one will be left even though it might be crowding the tree. So let's get in there and remove all the ones that I talked about and show you what it looks like after that, and then move more towards the top of the tree. Now, another reason for pruning this way is it helps avoid some of that sap dripping down on top of me while I prune the lower branches. So pruning the lower branches first has the sap coming out at the bottom and not from the top. Now, another thing that I pay attention to when I'm pruning, especially figs, is to get everything as close to the ground or as close to another branch as possible. I don't want to leave stubs. Now that I've got enough removed that we can kind of see what's going on down here, we can see several different large branches. We can see how big each one of these main trunks are, and we can make decisions now on which ones of those we keep and which ones we remove. All the small ones are definitely going to be removed. It's definitely more clear, and now we can see which branches are going to be a little more productive and which ones are more helpful to the tree, to the shape of the tree later. But I'm still going to leave those for now because I want to clear it out a little bit more. And the other benefit of starting at the bottom is only one branch had figs on it. All the other branches that I took out did not have figs on them, so we're not sacrificing figs, but we're clearing out the tree and making it more open by starting at the bottom. Now, because of the way this tree is angled, it's really hard to get good perspectives of what I'm pruning, but I'll try my best to show you exactly what I'm doing. So now that we've got the bottom cleared out, except for the 3 branches I want to choose from, what I want to do is look at the unproductive branches that are blocking pathways or that are crowding up the inside of the tree, choosing, like I said, the least productive branches. So we're going to open it up that way, and then we're going to look at it again. So we're going to choose branches that are coming into the center and that have the least amount of figs on them. And I also like to choose branches that are pushing up against walls so that we can keep them off the walls. So we're going to prune up almost all the branches on the back side of this tree. So it's already looking better. I did prune a few bigger branches that I hadn't planned on pruning, bigger than I had planned on pruning. But now when we get inside, we can make some better choices. Number one, this dead one's got to go. But when you look up into the tree right here, we have this big branch going through the middle. Now I've got to look at it and see which ones of this branch needs to go, if maybe all of them. It's attached to a big branch that's attached to our largest, most mature branch. I could either take that whole thing off, but that's quite a lot to take off, and I may need to wait until next spring to take that off, early spring while it's still dormant, if I can while it's still covered. Well, actually it's not going to be covered, so we're going to be fine with that. But we've got this branch that has very few figs, that is the tallest branch that we could take off of it. We also have this middle one right here and a smaller one. So I think we're going to take off this smaller one, even though we're going to take off a few figs. We're going to take off the tall one in the back and leave this productive one that has a nearly ripe fig on it already because it's got the most figs. So let's get that taken care of. So there goes the small one that was right, and I cut it really close to the branch so that we didn't leave a stub. Now we're going to cut this back one off really close to the branch it's growing on so we don't leave a stub. Then I'm going to stand back and look at it. That opened it up a bit more. It reduced some of the height, some of the bulk. So let's go back in and see if we can reduce more bulk. We're going to look at the unproductive branches through here. Take some of those off. This one does not have any figs on it, and it's crowding. Take that down to where it attaches to another branch. Got a bunch of tiny non-productive ones that are crowding everything in here. Remove those to open it up a bit. Now another thing that I can prioritize taking off are branches that have these little tiny baby figs on them. Because any branches that have these little tiny baby figs, they're not going to have time to ripen, but they're taking energy away from the ones that will have time to ripen. So we're going to prioritize taking these out also. That way I don't have to go through and pick off so many little babies. Because once this is done, if there are any little tiny baby figs like this, I'm going to put on my big girl pants and we're going to just pull them off because, like I said, they will not have time to ripen, but they're taking away too much energy from the tree. We always take time to stand back and look at the tree and try and see which branches are crowding the most, which area is the most crowded, and which can tolerate more pruning. I'm also going to take the tips off of all the tallest ones because the tallest branches have little baby figs and it's prioritizing growth over ripening. So we're going to cut those off. It's going to control the height a little bit, and then we'll stand back and look. And like I said, we're getting really close to having this one pruned enough because this is a tree that I'm not going to have to prioritize covering over the winter. We're just going to let this one go. So let's go back in and see what else we can take off. Now I think we may have just about done it. I see one more top that I'm going to prune off, and let's take you back down and show you the 3 branches that I was thinking about choosing from. So maybe you can see them in the back from here, I don't know. They're a little taller, they're not as productive, but you can follow them all the way down. And we can see 3 different placements, one of which is coming up in the middle of the tree. This is one of them right here. So I think that one is, well, we're gonna have to think about it. What I think I'm actually going to do, because I don't have to protect this tree over the winter, is I am going to leave all of these branches until next spring. And then I will choose next spring which one I feel will do the best for the tree. That way the tree will be bare, we'll be able to see everything better, and we'll do well. Now if you look down on the ground, there's only one branch that I pruned off that has a ton of figs on it. And most of the branches that I left in here have figs that are not starting to ripen yet because they have been prioritizing growth and adding new figs. So now I figure in about a week they'll start to swell up and we're going to start seeing new ripe figs. And that makes me excited. Now that we've finished proving the Chicago hardy fig that has figs that need to ripen and is one that I'm not going to cover, let's show you how to prune the black mission fig over here. It's a far less hardy fig and it has not produced any figs this year. It's only about 3 years old and has only produced figs 1 year. Normally I would tear figs like that out and put in something that I feel would be more productive, but this black mission fig is a gift from a friend who took a cutting from another mutual friend of ours who passed away. So mutual cutting from a fig, not a mutual cutting from a friend. But anyway, mutual cutting from a fig that was grown by another friend who's passed away. I want to preserve this fig. So we're going to prioritize the pruning a little bit differently. So let me show you how I'm going to prioritize this one. Now this fig is also quite filled out. It's a little thick and we want to open up the bottom of it, just like we opened up the bottom of this one. Now we want to open up the bottom of this one because when I cover it, I do use straw, and I'll link a video above that shows you how I cover them. And I build cages around it to keep everything away from the trunk. And I want to keep things away from the trunk because I want to avoid mice coming in and living around the trunk and eating the bark off of it. So we're going to go in, reduce the amount of growth around the trunk. We have a single trunk on this one. We could look and see if there's any multiple trunks that are trying to start, and we could do that, and we could allow those to grow, but I'm not seeing any right now. So we're going to, very first off, let's go through and reduce the bulk around the base. Now by starting at the base, we get the same benefits as we had with the Chicago Hardy. We are going to be able to visualize this fig a little bit better, see where the bulk of it is, and see where it's best to remove branches. So now that we remove the bulk around the base, it is definitely easier to see the shape of the tree and see what there is left to prune. Now, I do need to bring this fig tree in. I don't want it growing as wide because, like I said, we have to cover it, and I don't want to have to build a giant contraption to cover it. So I want to bring the sides in a little bit. So let's go in and look and see how we can open it up a little bit so it can breathe over the winter, even while it's covered, and how we can reduce the bulk on the sides. We're also going to look at my Chicago Hardy again and take out any branches that are not productive that are crowding this little black mission fig, and I can see a few of them right now. So let's do both of those things. Now I want to leave as much of this branch as possible on the Chicago Hardy because it's got quite a few little figs on it. And maybe when we're ready to cover the tree, we can take more of that off. This one right here has no figs on it, so we can take this off. That will give this black mission a little bit more room to breathe. So now let's go in on this one and reduce the sides. So we've got several decent sized branches that are coming out this way, and I think I'm just going to take these off right to the base where they connect to the trunks. Now because that's a smaller tree and we're prioritizing different than the Chicago Hardy, we're prioritizing the ability to cover it and preserve the main branches rather than preserving figs and the larger growth of the tree. So we did remove a lot more off the sides, so let me see if we can clean out the center a little bit so it doesn't suffocate itself over the winter. So once again, I'm looking for the branches that are doing the most damage and crowding, that give less of a benefit to the overall structure of the tree. And any that are up against the house, we're just going to take those off. Now I always like to stand back and take some time to look at it and make sure that I'm doing what I want to accomplish rather than cutting off things that shouldn't be cut off. And it's looking pretty good. I think this one we're just about ready to be done pruning. We'll just cut off a couple of more branches that I see. So that is it. I think we're just about done. I can see one more tall branch that I'd like to prune on the Chicago Hardy, but we are done. And we're not going to force a lot of new growth. And another benefit pruning this time of year is it gives them time to recover and heal over their wounds. I've tried pruning them in late September just before I cover the trees, because I do cover my trees while they're still actively growing before they go dormant, because our frosts and our heavy freezes come very quickly. Just out of the blue they'll come and you'll hit a 20-degree night, and if I allow that to happen while they're not dormant yet, I will lose all the branches. I don't want to do that, so I start the covering process early. So this gives them a chance to heal over and have a chance to recover a little bit before I have to cover them and before we hit those possible early fall freezes. So hopefully this video explains my philosophy on pruning, even though it doesn't fit other areas of the country. I really want to prioritize fig ripening, I want to prioritize productivity, and I want to prioritize being able to keep these trees producing year over year. Now, there are a lot of things that I do to my fig trees that other people in other parts of the country either don't do because it's a little excessive, or because they don't need to, because figs do better in their area of the country. But what I've done has produced a lot of figs for me. Now I would love to hear, especially if you live in cold climates, what you do differently. Do you prune figs the same way I do? Do you prune them in the early fall so that you can prioritize ripening? Do you cover them over the winter? And if you don't cover them over the winter and allow them to die back to the ground, do you get figs that ripen even if you have a short growing season? And I would love to hear what area of the country you're in. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.